We can see shocking moves in the silver price and the gold price. But first, we have to cover shocking news when it comes to the middle class here in the United States. If you're finding it much harder to live now as opposed to 2 years ago, you'll be fascinated by the recent data that's been uncovered by Michael Snyder. He wrote an article about the decimation of the middle class here in the United States. And what does that have to do with the silver price and the gold price? We're going to tie that together at the end of the video because it has everything to do with the silver price and the gold price. Did you know that right now, if you're a middle class American, you've lost almost 10% of your buying power over the last 2 years alone? So if you're feeling the heat, you're not alone. The middle class is shrinking, and that's going to spell big trouble for the U.S. economy and big news for the silver price and gold price. But we got a lot more to cover regarding what you're feeling right now as a middle American. Are you amongst the growing number of Americans who are finding it harder and harder to hold on to middle class status? You're not alone. The middle class has shrunk significantly from the year 2020 till today. As a matter of fact, Moody's, yes, the big rating agency, Moody's, their chief economist, Mark Zandi, had this to say on Twitter, which is now known as X. Nonetheless, he said the average Americans are now spending $709 more per month on everyday goods and services than they did just 2 years ago. Is the rising cost of living causing financial stress for you? If you're looking to buy gold, silver, or platinum, do yourself a favor and check out Pimbex, the online precious metals bullion dealer and sponsor of Ron's Basement. I was a happy customer before they offered to support the channel. You'll find they have the best prices, quality, and service. I think Pimbex is best, and you will too. And be sure to tell them that you're from Ron's Basement. If you're one of those wealthy people, you're likely doing just fine because all that money that was printed during the health crisis we had back in 2020, a lot of that money found its ways into the investment and bank accounts of wealthy Americans. They're able to absorb these price increases that are decimating people like you and me much easier because they've got investments and they've got extra money laying around. It doesn't hurt them as much as someone who's living paycheck to paycheck. And the statistics show that a growing number of Americans are indeed living paycheck to paycheck. It varies whether you're in an urban environment or maybe you live in a rural environment, but the numbers are as high as 70% of Americans living paycheck to paycheck. Yes, that means you have no savings, you have credit card debt, and maybe you've even resorted to pulling money out of a 401k. And we're going to talk about somebody who did that right now. When father of two, Ivan Morisic, lost his job overnight in 2020, he was left panicking about how he would cover his mortgage. Does that sound familiar? It prompted the 35-year-old from Texas to do something he never thought he would do. He withdrew $20,000 from his 401k. It is a decision he's still paying for now. Quote, he says, "I was really hesitant to do it because I knew it would set me back financially in the long run, but I didn't have any other options. I'd already maxed out my credit card and I was running out of money." So that's what Americans are getting. This is a tech worker, okay? Someone who's making a good salary. That's what's being faced by Americans. But it gets even more atrocious when we hear about the amount of money Americans are needing to pay just to put a roof over your head. Did you know you're a basement dweller? You belong here. We love to talk about silver and gold, platinum, and everything going on in the world. It's a big honor to me that you've joined me. I want you to come back. Please subscribe to the channel, and it really helps if you give this video one of those thumbs up, and it's free. Imagine for a second that you and I become even better friends. We decide we're going to move off to New York City together, and we're going full bore, Manhattan. Do you know what we'll be paying per month for rent? Almost $5,600 per month. Let me read this to you. New Yorkers are feeling the squeeze as rents hit a new high. Rent in Manhattan soared to a record high average of $5,588 in July. It's hurting tenants struggling to find apartments they can afford. One apartment hunter said she can't find a studio to suit her work-from-home needs for less than $5,000. Who can afford that? Only the wealthy. It's being reported that the rent-to-income ratio in the United States is now over 30%. That means you're spending more than 30% of your income just to put a measly roof over your head. But that's the first time in the history of the United States that has been the case. It gets even more astounding when we listen to information given to us from none other than the Wall Street Journal. The United States has seen a record jump in homeless people. That makes sense when we consider how expensive rent is becoming. But the increase so far in 2023 is 11% over the prior year, the biggest jump in history. People can't even afford to pay for a place to live. Do you remember the great financial crisis of 2008, 2009? We didn't see homeless numbers like this anywhere close to what we have now during the great financial crisis, and there's no other relief in sight. The national average for gasoline prices is creeping close to $4 per gallon. I was on vacation just last week in Wisconsin, filled up our Honda Odyssey minivan. It cost $80. I was thinking maybe 60. As it went to 70, my blood pressure went up a little bit, and then I had to stop looking. This affects our pocketbooks. That's an extra $20 that I may have spent on ice cream for the kids. Tens of millions of Americans are soon going to be forced to start making student loan debt payments again. For more than 3 years, federal student loan borrowers have not had to make monthly payments. But that pandemic-era pause is coming to an end this fall, setting up financial shock for millions of Americans in big-name stores such as Target, Nike, Under Armour, Gap, where they shop. About 44 million borrowers in the U.S. were affected by the payment pause, which initially began in March of 2020 at the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. The Biden administration extended the pause for the 8th time in November, but will not do so again as part of a bipartisan debt ceiling deal approved by Congress. So they raised the debt ceiling. Oh, wait, they didn't raise it. They suspended it, but now they're going to make Americans that have student loan debt start to make their payments again. And again, we're going to touch on this. More than 60% of Americans are already living paycheck to paycheck, and many are increasingly turning to debt to make ends meet because we know that credit card debt is at an all-time high right now in this country. Guys, when we pull this all together, when we look at what's going on out there to the middle class in this country, what's wrong with this country? My gosh, how do you feel about it? How do you feel if you're like me, middle class? How difficult it's becoming. I can tell you from personal experience, I have twin 11-year-old daughters. We definitely feel the pinch at the grocery store, at the gas pump. Kids get more expensive, I'm learning, as they get older. So we're being hit by like a confluence of factors, right? Prices are going up, and my kids who used to eat little bitty amounts of food now eat as much as me, or sometimes even more. It's getting tough to be an American, but what does this have to do with silver and gold, right? That's what this channel's about. That's why you come here. Well, I'll tell you, it has everything to do with silver and gold. At a base level, silver and gold on a long-term basis are going to help you preserve your wealth. But guys, when things get real hairy, and when we look at this data and when we consider it from a big picture perspective, the middle class is still the engine of this country. Sure, they're going to tell us, like they did earlier in the week, that retail sales are great. That's if you don't factor in inflation. Things are slowing down. We know trucking volumes are down 10%. We know cardboard box production volume is down 10%. That only points, and that kind of jives with the fact that Americans are now 10% less wealthy. Middle class Americans are 10% poorer. We know there's trouble heading down the pike. Why do you think China's economy is doing so poorly? Part of the reason is because America's not importing as many goods. The shipping data, the shipping container traffic is always down. So when all this comes to a head, what you can expect is a panic from our friend Jerome Powell at the Federal Reserve. And it's going to first be a pivot, and then it will be a move to actually cutting rates and reliquefying, because that's the only option they have. Mathematically, that's all they can do to save the system. And they're going to try everything they can to save the system because they're beholden to the system. The wealthy and the high-level politicians, they want things to stay the way they are because they're reaping the most benefit from the current situation. But when they have to take the actions that they're going to have to take, and it might even be CBDC and magic electronic money that shows up on your cell phone, it doesn't matter. It's all dilutive to the value of the currency of the United States. And what will always hold its value are silver and gold and platinum, for that matter. Hey, be well. Thanks for joining me. Go watch a live stream, and I'll see you soon.